Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Introduce myself, my name is Aulia Cahya Kirani, and today I would like to present my research proposal entitled The Relationship Between Students' Motivation and Reading Comprehension Skill. And I will begin by explaining the background of the study, the problem being investigated, and the objectives of the research. Reading comprehension is one of the most essential skills in learning English, especially in EFL context. But however, many students still struggle to understand text because apparently reading requires not only vocabulary and grammar, but it also requires concentration and motivation. Furthermore, motivation has been shown to play a significant role in improving students' reading achievement. Students who are more motivated usually have more time to read frequently, and they are able to understand text better. And however, most previous research on this topic has been conducted with high school students, and there are still very few studies that explore the relationship between motivation and also the reading comprehension in a college student. Another important aspect to consider for the researcher that uplift this topic is that gender. Male and female students are often found to have different levels of motivation and reading performance, where female students tend to show a higher engagement in reading activities. So based on those points, this study aims to examine the correlation between students' motivation and their reading comprehension, and also investigate whether gender plays a moderating role in that relationship or no. Let's move on to the RQs. The first question is there a significant correlation between students' motivation and their reading comprehension skill? This question aims to determine whether students who have higher motivation also tend to achieve better reading comprehension results, and vice versa. The second research question asks, does gender influence the relationship between students' motivation and their reading comprehension skill? In other words, this study wants to see whether the strength of the correlation between motivation and reading comprehension is different for male and female students. By answering these two questions, this research is expected to provide a clear understanding of how motivation affects reading comprehension and whether gender plays a role in this relationship among English education students at Universitas Siliwangi. Based on the research questions, this study has two main objectives. The first objective is to determine whether there is a significant correlation between students' motivation and their reading comprehension skill. Through this objective, the study aims to see if students with higher levels of motivation also tend to achieve better reading comprehension performance. The second objective is to find out whether gender influences a relationship between motivation and reading comprehension skill. This means the study seeks to examine whether the strength of the correlation differs between male and female students. And overall, these objectives are formulated to provide a deeper understanding of how motivation contributes to reading comprehension and whether gender plays a moderating role in this relationship. Move on to the significance of the study. This study is expected to provide meaningful contributions for both teachers and students. For teachers, the findings can give insight into how students' motivation affects their reading comprehension. And with this understanding, teachers can apply strategies that increase motivation, and they can also consider that gender differences to better adjust their instruction approach. Meanwhile, for students, this research can help them in realizing the importance of motivation in improving reading comprehension. When students understand how motivation influences their learning process, they may become more motivated to engage in reading activities and develop better reading habits. Recognizing gender differences can also encourage them to support one another in achieving better outcomes. Now let's talk about the literature review. This research is supported by three main Theoretical foundations. The first is motivation theory. Self-determination theory by Dechi and Ryan. It is explain the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Also, Gardner highlights that motivated learners show stronger effort and better outcomes in reading domain. The second is reading comprehension theory by Grape and Stroller, which views reading as a combination of text processing and also background knowledge. Motivation becomes essential because it encourages students to persist and use reading strategies. The third perspective is gender. Research consistently shows gender differences in motivation and reading performance, with female students generally showing higher engagement and achievement. Supporting studies also report that strong motivation improves reading comprehension and that female students often benefit more from motivation in reading context. These findings form the basis of examining motivation, reading comprehension, and gender in this study. In this study, a quantitative correlational design is used. The purpose of this design is to identify whether there is a significant statistical relationship between students' motivation and their reading comprehension skill without manipulating any variables. In this research, motivation functions as the independent variable, while reading comprehension is the dependent one. Additionally, gender acts as a moderating variable to determine whether it influences the strength of the relationship between motivation and reading comprehension skill. The population of this study consists of students from the English Education Department at Universitas Siliwangi. The sample is taken from 5th semester students that enrolled in the same department. This group is chosen because they have already developed a certain level of English proficiency and are expected to have varied levels of motivation and reading comprehension. Now, research instruments. The first one is motivation questionnaire. This questionnaire consists of 20 statements on a 5 Likert scale that measuring intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. The second one is reading comprehension test, and this test consists of 7 items, that is multiple choice, and it is based on a narrative text. Next, I will explain the operational definitions of the variables used in this research. The first variable is students' motivation, which is the variable X. And in this research, students' motivation refers to internal and external factors that encourage students to engage and persist in reading. The indicators used to measure this variable consist of intrinsic and also extrinsic motivation. And to collect this data, the data related, a motivation questionnaire was used. The second variable is reading comprehension skill, or the variable Y. This variable refers to students' ability to understand, interpret, and evaluate English text. The indicators include identifying main ideas, vocabulary understanding, inference, and detailed comprehension. The instrument used to measure this variable is a reading comprehension test. So, overall, both variables have been clearly defined based on their operational meaning, indicators, and measurement methods to ensure the accuracy and validity of the data collected. I already said the data will be collected by using 2 main instruments. The first one is motivation questionnaire, and also the second one is reading comprehension test. And for the data analysis, to analyze the data, first I will analyze the descriptive statistics of the results that will describe the mean, median, and standard deviation. After that, the data were tested for the normality to find whether the distribution was normal or no. And if the distribution is normal, then I will make the hypothesis, and the hypothesis were made will be tested using Pearson's product and using the SPSS 20 program. And this is for the research schedule and also the plan. I divided into the activity and also the month that I will conduct every activity. The references that I used for this research. And that's it. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry if there is any mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.